Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Star Wars Carbon Freezing Chamber set, which houses the Lost Line. That's right, this set has 6 brand new action figures, 7 if you count the bonus that's inside, that are considered Hasbro's Lost Line of Star Wars figures. Because all of these figures are on really cool cardbacks that are based on one of the original designs that Kenner was going to use back in the vintage line. So all of these figures are housed in this really cool box that resembles the Carbon Freezing Chamber. So before we look at the figures inside, let's take a look at this really cool packaging here. So you can see it's got this very cool shape to it that resembles that Carbon Freezing Chamber, and on each side we can see one of these 6 figures slotted within. Now each side has a figure from each of the 6 movies in the Star Wars saga, and up above it's got the name of the movie. So on the first side we've got from The Phantom Menace, Jar Jar Binks. From Attack of the Clones we have a Clone Trooper Lieutenant. From Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, we have a Shock Trooper. From Episode 4, A New Hope, we have a Sand Trooper. From Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, we have Princess Leia. And from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, we have Darth Vader. Now, as I mentioned, there is a bonus figure within the box, and this is really cool to show you how this works. On the Episode 1 side, there's this little flap, Velcros up, and you can actually slide it forward. This opens up a slot up in the top of the Carbon Freezing Chamber. So you can then reach inside of that and pull out the bonus figure. Now this figure, of course, will only be made available for anybody who purchases this particular set, which is Jar Jar Binks, frozen in carbonite. It's every Star Wars fan's dream come true. It's very cool. This is actually on the current vintage style cardback, and it houses this really nifty Jar Jar Binks and Carbonite exclusive figure on the inside. So, very, very cool little accessory there. Now, looking at the package some more, you can see the lid just kind of folds open here. It's attached on the back, folds open all the way, and this is how you can get to the other figures inside. This also shows us the way that the Jar Jar Binks was housed. There's this little slit part in here, and that's where he was actually stored. So you can always fold that lid open to pull him out as well. Each of the carded figures inside are just slotted onto this cardboard insert. So all you got to really do is just pull them off of the slots here. You want to be careful not to bend the packages, of course, if you want to leave them mint on card. But they just slide right off of there. So in theory, if you wanted to, you could pull all of these guys off and you can put them back on, so that way if you want to pull them out, look at them a little bit, put them back on, display them back in the package, it's very easy to do so. Or I suppose if you want to put some different figures in here to display them, it's definitely possible. Just slide them on the slots there. But we're not going to keep these guys mint on card. Why do we do that? This is a review. Let's rip open all 6 of these figures, well, all 7 of these figures, and check them out. So let's first take a look at the 6 main figures outside that Carbon Freeze Chamber box. Each figure comes on a chase cardback based on the design that was originally considered by Kenner to be used on the vintage Star Wars line. So we're basically getting a look at what could have been. Each of the cardbacks features a very nice looking blue and black color scheme. An image of the character is on the lower right hand of the card, and above that, we get an image of a ship from the film that the character represents. Each package has a different ship image on it. The back of each of these boxes gives information on the character included within, as well as gives us a glimpse at the other 5 figures from the set. So now that we've seen the packaging for each of the figures, let's go ahead and open them up to take a look at them one by one. We'll start things off with Jar Jar Binks from Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Jar Jar Binks is an entirely new figure. The sculpt on the figure is pretty great, perfectly capturing the look of the dopey Gungan who is everyone's most favorite Star Wars character. The paint job on this figure is pretty good, with some nice details, such as the markings on his arms. You'll notice that Jar Jar has a pleather-like skirt piece on. I think this looks much nicer than the cloth skirt pieces that we've seen on most of the other Vintage Collection figures so far. And of course it does help with his leg articulation not to be hindered. So speaking of his articulation, let's take a look at what Jar Jar has. The head is able to turn at the top of the neck, and the neck itself is able to turn on the shoulders and move forward and backward. He has ball-like joints at the shoulders, allowing for a good range of movement, swivel above the elbow as well as an elbow bend, and a wrist swivel. He has a waist swivel, regular joints at the legs, allowing for forward-backward movement, swivels above the knees as well as a standard knee joint, and his feet are able to turn, though they are a little tight underneath the pants there. So you do have a pretty wide range of articulation to get some pretty good poses out of this Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar includes two accessories. First up is his Gungan club, featuring a nice looking translucent blue orb on the top. As a second accessory, he also includes a Gungan staff. It's a nice accessory with a good paint job, but it is worth noting that it's pretty loose fitting in both of Jar Jar's hands. Next up, let's take a look at the Clone Trooper Lieutenant from Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, if you already own the Clone Trooper from the Vintage Collection that was released in 2011, you already know exactly what to expect here. He just has a new paint job this time around, giving him the blue markings that rank him as a lieutenant. Still, it's a very nice sculpt and design for the figure. The helmet is removable, revealing the standard-looking clone head underneath. The helmet is a bit on the soft side, but it does fit nice and snug on his head. Now, as far as his articulation goes, his head is able to turn both left and right and slightly up and down. He does have ball-like joints at the shoulders, but it's a little tight because of the pauldrons there. He has swivels above the elbow as well as a standard elbow bend and a wrist swivel. He has a nice rocker joint there at the torso, allowing him to rock around and twist. He's got hinge-like joints at the thighs, allowing for a good range of movement there. Swivels above the knees as well as a knee bend. Swivels at the ankles as well as an ankle bend. So lots of great articulation, so you can get some great battle poses or standing at attention poses out of your Clone Trooper. He includes two accessories. First up is the smaller blaster, which you can get some great single-handed and two-handed poses out of. He also includes the larger blaster rifle accessory, which also works very well both one-handed and two-handed. Both weapons are well painted and made of a nice sturdy plastic. Next up is the Shock Trooper from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. The Shock Trooper, of course, was seen towards the end of Episode 3, accompanying Palpatine to Mustafar to retrieve a badly burned Darth Vader. Just like the Clone Trooper Lieutenant we just looked at, the Shock Trooper shares the same body as the previously released Clone Trooper in the Vintage Collection. He does, however, have a new helmet sculpt, and, of course, a snazzy new red paint job on the armor. The helmet is also removable on this figure, just as it was with the Lieutenant, and is made of that same softer plastic. The helmet again fits nice and snugly on the clone's head and looks really nice with that red paint deco. Since he shares the same body as that clone lieutenant, he's got the exact same articulation. Head turns left and right. He's got the ball joints at the shoulders there. He's got swivels above the elbow as well as an elbow bend, swivel at the wrist, rocker at the torso, hinge-like joints at the thighs, allowing for a good range of motion there, swivels above the knees, regular knee bends, swivels at the ankles, and an ankle bend. So, just like with that lieutenant, you can get some great poses out of this clone trooper. The shock trooper also includes the exact same 2 accessories as the lieutenant. So you've got both that short blaster rifle and the long blaster rifle. Paint jobs are exactly the same, made of the same quality plastic as the others, so no different than the lieutenant, but do fit very nicely for the shock trooper. So sticking with that troop theme, the next figure is the Sand Trooper from Episode 4, A New Hope. The Sand Trooper has always been one of my favorite looks for the Stormtrooper. Now if you bought that dewback set that was exclusive to Walmart a few years back, the body used on this figure is exactly the same, he just has a new head. The paint job is really great on this one though, as he's got a very sand-worn look to his armor. To complete that look, he also includes a removable backpack and an orange pauldron over his shoulder. As far as articulation goes, the head is able to turn left and right and move slightly up and down. He has good hinge joints at the shoulders there, allowing for a great range of motion. He's got a standard elbow bend and a swivel right above that, as well as a swivel at the wrist. He's got that same rocker at the torso there, allowing for a good range of motion. Hinge joints at the thighs, allowing him to split his legs and move forwards backwards. Swivel above the knee, as well as a standard knee bend, swivel at the ankle, as well as a standard ankle bend. So lots of great opportunities for posing or mounting the dewback or whatever you want to do with your Sand Trooper here. You should be able to get some good poses out of him. Now the Sand Trooper is loaded with accessories. In addition to that backpack and shoulder pauldron we already saw, he also includes a smaller blaster pistol that has an articulation point on it, so you can pose that around as well to get some different looks for him. He also has the standard larger blaster rifle, which is what we generally picture our Sand Troopers holding. He's also got this cool little sentry droid, and a clear stand that attaches to his backpack to make it look as if the droid is hovering above his shoulder. So overall, this is probably one of my favorite figures in this whole set. Next up is Princess Leia in her Bespin attire from Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. This one is a pretty great figure that I'm sure will be a favorite. I will say that the likeness is not incredibly accurate to Carrie Fisher, but we've had worse Leia face sculpts. What I really love about this one, though, is the outfit that she's wearing. She has a removable collar and white gown piece. The design on the cloth gown is very intricate and beautifully done. Her skirt is also made of a cloth material, but it blends in well with the color of the plastic used on her top, so it doesn't look like it's really out of place. It fits rather nicely. So as far as the articulation on Leia goes, she can turn her head left and right slightly up and down, ball-like joints at the shoulders allowing for a good range of motion, swivels above the elbows, elbow bend, wrist swivel. She does twist at the waist. She just has the standard forward-backward motion at the legs. The skirt does not hinder that whatsoever. She's got swivel above the knee as well as a regular knee bend, swivel at the ankle, and an ankle bend. So you can get some pretty good poses out of your Princess Leia here. Leia does include one accessory in the form of a smaller blaster pistol. She can hold it in either one of her hands, and it does look best in the right hand as it does seem to have a better trigger finger for it, but she can hold it in both hands just fine, and that will help add to some of your posing. For the final of the main figures comes Darth Vader from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, this version of Vader depicts his look during his redemption, when he is hit with Force lightning while saving his son from Emperor Palpatine. The Vader figure is the same as the Vintage Collection version, but he features a translucent helmet which you can see his skull through, which I find incredibly cool looking. His cape and skirt pieces are all made of cloth, and they work very well on this particular figure. He also has the ability to remove his right hand, which reveals a robotic stub where Luke de-handed him during their final lightsaber battle. Now, as far as your articulation on Vader goes here, you're able to turn the head both left and right. The ball joints in the shoulders allow for a good range of motion there. He has swivels above the elbow as well as a regular elbow bend, and then a swivel at the wrist, which is at the glove cut. He has a standard swivel at the waist. He just has the standard forward-backward motion for the legs, swivel above the knee as well as a knee bend, swivel at the ankle as well as a regular ankle bend. Now, for accessories, of course, you can't have a Darth Vader without his famous red lightsaber. It's a great-looking accessory, but if you've had Darth Vaders in the past, you know exactly what to expect here. One thing worth noting is that he can only hold it in his left hand, as his right hand is sculpted in a closed fist. He also includes these really cool blue lightning pieces, which you can snap around the figure to reenact the scene where he tosses Palpatine to his doom. So there's the 6 main figures from this set. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty good assortment. Half of them are troopers, but those are always really popular figures for collectors, and they are really great versions of them. I will note that I really wish these figures all came with figure stands. Some of the figures who have smaller feet, like Jar Jar and Princess Leia, are a little hard to stand up on their own. I know that the Vintage Collection hasn't been coming with stands for a while now, but it's not going to stop me from bringing it up every time I review a figure from this set. I love the figure stands, and I would really like to see them return. So now that we got those 6 figures out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at that bonus figure. Jar Jar in Carbonite comes in the standard Vintage Collection style packaging, featuring that classic Kenner look. There's a nice goofy image of Jar Jar right after he zapped his tongue on the pod racer, so he's making this really goofy face, which really fits the tone of this particular figure. The back of the box looks just like all of the other Vintage Collection figures, showcasing all of the other figures that are currently available for purchase, but does note that this figure is not available for individual sale. So outside of the packaging, this Jar Jar in Carbonite is a completely new piece altogether. It feels nice and solid and actually has a little bit of weight to it. And the sculpt is downright hilarious, showing Jar Jar with a really goofy look on his face with his tongue hanging out of the side of his mouth while being frozen in a carbonite block. A real fun thing about this is that you can pull the carbonite piece outside of the little container and flip it around. This actually has some holes in there where it looks like Jar Jar has been thawed from the carbonite. Now, the Jar Jar figure that comes with the set is a little taller than this, so it doesn't quite fit in the holes that are in this piece, but you can still pose him up against it if you want to. But really, who would want to thaw Jar Jar out? Let's keep him frozen. This is certainly a really fun piece that I think many collectors will enjoy having as part of their Star Wars collection. It certainly makes for a great exclusive. So there you go, guys. There's a look at the 2012 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Star Wars Carbon Freezing Chamber figure set from Hasbro. While I'm not sure I could rank this as high as the Revenge of the Jedi Death Star set that was released the year before, I still think this is a pretty great looking set that features some creative packaging, some really cool figures, and a really fun bonus figure. Until next time,